Morning to all of you.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, so we have started root locus technique for stability analysis. The last class, that was the introductory part of the root locus technique. So now we'll discuss what are the rules for construction of the root locus. So what is root locus? We have discussed that why root locus plots are required. Okay, how these roots are moving in the S-plane. Okay, so this part we have discussed. Now there are several rules we have to remember, and we have to understand what are these rules. So based on these rules, we will a transfer function will be given, and you are supposed to plot the root locus. Now the first rule is the root locus is symmetrical about the real axis. Okay, so this is very, very important. So any root locus, if you have any kind of root locus, that will be symmetrical about the real axis. Okay, so what is the meaning of that? Okay, I will show you. So let us say this is your sigma, is real part, and this is your imaginary part, imaginary axis. So let us say if the root locus on the real axis in the upper half, if it is the plot is something like this, so obviously in the lower half, it will be symmetrical in nature. That means about this real axis, this is your real axis. So about this real axis, the root locus will be symmetrical in nature. Next, the rule 2 is the root loci starts from an open loop poles with k equal to 0. The system having, let us say, some transfer function GSHS equal to k into s plus 3 divided by s plus 2. So basically, the root locus will start from the open loop poles and it will terminate at t, either at zeros or it will terminate at infinity. So for this particular transfer function, this is s equal to -2, there is a pole, and s equal to -3, there is a 0. So the root locus will start from open loop pole, that is -2, and it will terminate at 0. So how it looks like? So for example, this is s equal to -2. So that means this is your pole and this is your 0. So the root locus will originate from here. The root locus will, so it will originate from here and it will terminate at 0. Okay. So we have to remember the root locus will always originate from the open loop poles and it will terminate at 0 or it may terminate at infinity also. Next, rule 3, the root loci terminate either on an open loop 0 or on infinity with k equal to infinity. That is, find the ending point of the root loci. So according to the rule, the root loci will terminate at s equal to -3. So for the previous example, it is given. So we have just now understood this point that root locus will always originate from the open loop poles and it will get terminated at open loop 0 or at infinity. Infinity means at k equal to infinity. Next, rule 4, if n equal to number of separate loci, p is the number of finite poles and z is the number of finite zeros, then number of root loci will be equal to the number of poles if the poles are more than number of zeros. That is, p if it is greater than z, then n will be equal to p. If p is greater than z, if z is greater than p, then the number of root loci will be equal to the number of zeros. So, and if p equal to z means number of root loci equal to number of poles equal to 0. So for example, if P equal to 1, Z equal to 1, then obviously your number of root loci will be equal to 1. So that means here, based on the number of poles and zeros, the number of root loci can be determined. Next, rule 5, root loci on the real axis. So any point on the real axis is a part of the root locus if and only if the number of poles and zeros to its right is odd. Okay, so this is very, very important. We have to understand this point clearly. So any point on the real axis is a part of the root locus if and only if the number of poles and zeros to its right is odd. So I will just draw . So let us say this is your sigma j omega plane. That means S plane, sigma, and this is your j omega. This is your S plane. So, for example, there is a pole at S equal to -1. There is a 0 at S equal to -2. Then there is a pole at S equal to -3. So now, how to determine whether any point on the real axis, whether it will be part of the root locus or not. So for example, this is S equal to 0. This is the origin. So from origin to S equal to -1, if you take any point, so how many poles and zeros are there right of this particular point? How many? If you take this point, okay, right of this point, okay, right means this side, right? How many poles and zeros are there? How many poles and zeros are there?
2 poles and 1 zero, sir.
I am talking, this is a point right of this particular point, right means this side. How many poles and zeros are there if you take this particular point? How many? How many poles and zeros are there? If you consider this is the point and right side of this one, how many are there? This is the point, left side these are the poles and zeros. Right side, how many poles and zeros are there?
Zero.
Zero. So that means if you consider this particular from S equal to 0 to S equal to -1, this particular region, there should not be any root locus. So there will be no root locus. Now if you consider between -1 to -2, so if you take any point here, so right of this particular point, how many poles and zeros will be there?
1 poles.
1. So that means the rule is if number of poles plus number of zeros, if it is, this should be what? Just now I have told you.
Yes, sir.
It should be odd number. It should be odd number. Okay. So for this case, whether between S equal to -1 and S equal to -2, between these two, whether root locus will be there or root locus will not be there. Whether one is odd or even.
So odd.
Odd.
Okay. So that means, so what will be that? So root locus will be there or it will be absent.
Will be there, sir.
Okay. So root locus will be there. So that means here there will be root locus. Now, if you consider between -2 and -3, this region, okay, and if you consider a particular point here, so how many poles and zeros are there right of this particular point?
So 1 pole, 1 0.
Poles 1 0.
So how many poles and zeros are there? Total?
So 2.
2, sir.
2. So whether it is odd or even?
Even.
Even.
Even. So whether root locus will be there or not?
Not.
No, sir.
Okay. So that means there should not be any root locus. No root locus. Okay. So this is the rule. Okay. On the real axis, depending upon the number of poles and zeros, whether the root locus will be present or it will be absent, it is determined by this particular rule. Next, rule 6. Next is the asymptotes. Now, do you have any idea on the what is asymptote? Means 11, 12. Let us say you have any concept of the asymptote. Have you heard this name anywhere?
So which touches the axis at infinity?
Huh? Correct. What is that?
Sir, which touches the axis at infinity, sir?
Yeah.
A line.
There is a locus which will actually move towards the infinity. Okay. And it will follow a particular path. Okay. So that is called the asymptote. Okay. So here also we have a concept of asymptote. What is that? So the branches of root locus tend to infinity along a set of straight line called the asymptote. So these asymptotes making an angle with real axis and is given by phi equal to 2k plus 1 into 180 degree divided by p minus z, where k equal to 0, 1, 2 up to m. So in any root locus, whether the asymptote will be there or if at all the asymptote is present, so what should be the angle of the asymptotes that is determined by this particular formula. So phi will be equal to 2k plus 1 into 180 degree by p minus z. Okay. So p is the number of poles and z equal to number of zeros. Okay. So how will get this thing? Okay. Let us first understand this thing. How will do this thing? So let us say a transfer function is given ESHS equal to k by s into s square plus 6s plus 10. So from this transfer function, it is clear that number of poles will be p will be 3 because this is s equal to 0. There is a pole, and if you factorize this s square term, there will be 2 roots. So that means 2 plus 1. That means there will be 3 poles, and there is no zeros. So that means p equal to 3 and z equal to 0. So number of asymptotes for this particular transfer function, it is calculated by p minus z. So this is the number of asymptote will be p minus z. So p minus z means it is 3 minus 0, it is 3. Now we'll calculate that what should be the asymptotic angle. So first we'll take k equal to 0. So we'll apply in this formula. It is 2k plus 1 into 180 degree divided by p minus z. So k equal to 0 first. So 2 into 0 plus 1 into 180 degree by 3 minus 0. So if you calculate, it will come 60 degree. Now let us say we will substitute k equal to 1. So again we'll do the calculation. We are getting 180 degree. Then k equal to 2. Then we'll calculate the phi again. So this is 300 degree. So that means we are getting the asymptotic angle. It is 60 degree, 180 degree and 300 degree. So how to plot this thing in S-plane? Because everything we are doing in the S-plane. So S-plane, this is your real axis, this is your imaginary axis. Okay. So what we'll do, we'll draw a line, asymptotic line, okay, at an angle of 60 degree. Then we'll draw a line from this particular point. The angle is 180 degree. So everything is with respect to this real axis. Then we have another asymptotic line. It is at 300 degree. 300 degree means if you take from this real axis, it is 240 degree. So 240 degree or it is 60 degree. So this is another asymptotic line. So I will explain once again. Okay. So when you draw any asymptote, that time you need to remember one thing, that is the two things I will say. There will be two things you have to remember. So let us say this is your sigma j omega plane. So this is your sigma and this is your j omega. So whether the asymptote will be there or it will not be there, it depends upon number of poles minus number of zeros. So this will basically n will determine whether the number of what should be the number of asymptotes. So from if you get this n value, so you have the formula that is phi equal to 2k plus minus 1 into 180 degree divided by p minus z. So if you apply this formula and you have to vary k, if you are getting here 3, so what you have to do? So k equal to 0, you will calculate phi. Then k equal to 1, you will calculate phi. And k equal to 2, you will calculate phi. So let us say these angles are some angles will come. So let us say first angle is 60 degrees, second angle is 180 degree, third angle is 300 degree. The last problem we have seen. So now let us say this is the point, asymptotic point, how it has to be calculated. We'll see that later on. So first you know that how we'll draw this asymptote. So at an angle of 60 degree, that means this should be your asymptotic line. So this is at an angle of 60 degree. Now from here, you will draw again another line which is at 180 degree. So this is a asymptotic line at 180. And then another line, this is 60 degree, minus 60 degree. So minus 60 degree, or you can say this is 240 degree. The matter is, sorry, this is an angle of 300 degree because total is 360 degree. This will be 300 degree. So that means this will be this is number one asymptote. This is, let us say this is first asymptote here. This is your second asymptote and this is your third asymptote. So what this asymptote will do, basically the root locus, when we'll do this, we'll plot the root locus will follow this path. So when the root locus will move towards the infinity, which path it will follow? So the root locus basically, it will follow the path of the asymptote. So how they will follow, we'll see that. We'll see that step by step. Next is the centroid of asymptotes. So centroid of asymptotes, how to calculate? Okay. So the point of intersection of asymptotes with real axis is called the centroid of asymptotes. So how to calculate the centroid of asymptotes? So it is sum of poles minus sum of zeros by p minus j. So you will see if a transfer function is given. So what you will do? You will first calculate what are the poles are there and what are the zeros are there in those transfer function. So after calculating the number of poles, that is actually the location of the pole where the poles are located and number of zeros, then you will substitute this thing. Then you will get the p minus z. So p minus z is basically your number of poles minus number of zeros. Okay. So you will be able to calculate the centroid of the locus. So let us say a transfer function is given, GSHS equal to k by s into s square plus 6s plus 10. So the location of the poles are, there are 3 poles. So one pole is at S1 equal to 0. Then S2 equal to your another pole will be, let us say, minus 3. Here it should be minus 3 plus J1. It is not written. It should be minus 3 plus J1 and S3 will be equal to minus 3 minus J2. Okay. And number of zeros are 0. Okay. So centroid, how we'll calculate? Sum of poles. So we'll simply substitute these values. S1 0 plus minus 3 plus J1 plus minus 3 minus J1. Okay. Then formula is minus sum of zeros. So there is no 0. So this will be minus 0. And next is p minus j, number of poles minus number of zeros. So number of poles is 3 and number of zero is 0. So 3 minus 0 is 3. So if you calculate, the centroid will be at minus 2. So That means if you see this point is your -2. Okay. So I will show in our diagram. Okay. So here I have told you take from this point. But what is this point? A point may be here, point may be here, point may lie here also. So how to calculate? This is basically your centroid of the asymptote. So this point is your, this is your centroid of asymptote. So this value is coming s equal to, let us say, -2. Is it clear? Any doubt up to this point? Any query from your end? Any query, please tell me. If you have any query. Hello.
नो सर, इस क्वेश्चन में तो नहीं है.
Next is rule 8. Rule 8 is angle of departure and angle of arrival of the root locus. So angle of departure of the root locus from a complex pole is given by. So see, angle of departure and angle of arrival. Okay, how to calculate? Okay, so from where it will come? Actually, where which portion will apply this thing? Let us understand this thing first. So let us say this is your real axis and this is your imaginary axis. And let us say this is your sigma, this is your g omega. Now sometimes there will be, let us say there will be a complex poles, okay, complex poles of this nature. Let us say complex conjugate poles. For example, this is -1 plus J3 and -1 minus J. So now let us say from here the root locus will start because these are poles. So from the poles we know the root locus will start. Now the point is, if the root locus is starting from here, so which direction it will move? Whether it will move this way, whether it will move this way, or it will this way, because we don't know. There is a complete 360-degree path. So what should be the angle? Based on that particular angle, root locus will move. But we don't know how to calculate this angle of departure. So angle of departure, normally it is calculated for these cases. So if let us say I have shown for this case, it is applicable for this case also. Because we don't know what should be the path of the root locus, because there is a complete 360-degree angle. So which direction, whether it should be 60-degree, so it will move this way. Whether it is 180, let us say 180 degree, then it will move this way. So we don't know what should be the angle. So based on that, this angle, the movement of the root locus will be determined in the S-plane for this type of poles. So the formula to calculate the angle of departure of the root locus, it is calculated phi d equal to 180 degree minus sum of angles of vectors drawn to this pole from other poles plus sum of angles of vectors drawn to this pole from the zeros. So we'll elaborate this thing in detail. Okay, let us first understand this thing. So 180 degree minus sum of angles of vectors drawn to this pole. So you are considering a pole. So I have shown you that in the complex conjugate pole. So your objective is to calculate the angle of departure from that particular pole. So sum of angles of vectors to drawn this pole from other poles plus sum of angles of vectors drawn to this pole from the zeros. So let us understand with that in the board. So here you want to calculate for this particular pole. This is your objective. Okay, it is -1 plus J3. But only -1 plus J3 is not there. Let us say at S equal to -1, there is a pole. And S equal to, let us say it is 0.5. It is 0.5 because -1 means this is your -1. Okay. And here let us say S equal to 2, there is a -2, there is a 0. Here also, maybe at S equal to +1, there is another 0. So how to calculate the basically angle of departure? This is basically calculated with the help of phi d. So phi d equal to 180 degree minus sum of angle contribution. So how to calculate? We'll draw a, from here to here we'll join and we'll calculate what is this angle. So let us say this is your θ1. For example, this is θ1. Now from this 0 also we'll join this and we basically calculate what is this angle θ with respect to the real axis. Everything is with respect to the real axis. Now we'll join these two also and we'll calculate what is the angle contribution of this particular 0 on this particular pole. So phi d will be equal to sum of angle contribution from the poles. So poles means this is poles. So only one pole is there, that is your θ1 plus the angle contribution made by the zeros. So what are the zeros? That is θ2 and θ3. So it will be θ2 plus θ3. Is it clear? This point, any doubt? Do you have any doubt? Do you have any doubt?
No,
No.
sir.
So this way we can basically calculate the angle of departure. Now next is the angle of arrival at a complex 0 is given by phi a equal to 180 degree minus sum of angles of vectors drawn to this 0 from the other 0 plus sum of angles of vectors drawn to this 0 from poles. So sometimes it may happen the zeros are lying at that particular point. So we know in the 0, the root locus will always arrive. From the zeros, the root locus will not terminate. Okay. So in this case, the angle of departure will not be valid. In this case, angle of arrival will be valid. Okay. So angle of arrival in this case, it is calculated with the help of this formula. That is phi a will be equal to 180 degree minus the sum of angle of vectors drawn to this 0 from other 0. So that means in the previous case, we have taken sum of angles of vector drawn to this pole from other poles. So now here it is sum of vectors drawn to this 0 from other 0. So first the minus will be 0's contribution plus the sum of angles of the vectors drawn to this 0 from the poles. So that means plus the angle contribution from the poles. So only the difference is here the formula is minus plus, there is a interchange. Okay. So let us understand this thing. So for example, let us say this is your sigma, this is your z vector. Now, let us say any 0 is there. Any 0 it is lying, for example, here. Okay, at s equal to -2. There is a 0 at, let us say, s equal to 1. At there is a pole at s equal to -1. And there is a 0 at here. Maybe something. Let us say this is your -1.5 plus j2. And here there is another 0, for example, -1.5 minus j2. So how to calculate the angle of arrival for this case? So what we'll do, we'll basically join. Okay. So let us say, first we'll join zeros. So this is, let us say, θ1. This is your another 0. So this is your θ2. And you have another 0 also here. This is your, we'll join this thing also. This is here. Basically, it is 90 degree. This is theta 3. And then for the poles, it is theta. So the formula, the angle of arrival phi A, this will be equal to 180 degree minus angle contribution from all zeros to this particular zero. We are actually interested to calculate the angle of departure for this particular zero. So that means this will be equal to minus, this will be first we will take the angle contribution from 0. So that is theta 1, for this 0 it is plus theta 2. And from this 0 also, this will be plus theta 3 plus. Now we'll take the angle contribution from the poles towards this 0. So this will be theta 4. Any confusion on this step? Angle of the arrival? Angle of arrival, any confusion? Any confusion on angle of arrival?
No, sir.
Okay. So let us say a transfer function is given GSHS equal to K by S into S plus 6 into S square plus 4S plus 30. Determine the angle of departure from the complex poles. So here we'll do the same thing. We'll first calculate what are the poles and zeros are there. So S equal to 0, there is a one pole, S equal to minus 6, there is another pole. And if you solve it, then you will get a complex pole. Okay, there will be 2 poles. So that means total there will be 4 number of poles are there. There is no zeros. So we want to calculate the angle of departure. So you see minus 2 plus J3, minus 2 minus J3, this is S equal to 0 and S equal to minus 6. So we are interested, let us say the angle of departure at this particular point. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll join this thing, these poles and these poles, then this pole minus 6 with this one and minus 2 minus J3 with minus 2 plus J3. Okay, so angle contributions are theta P1, theta P2 and theta P3. So angle of departure will be 180 degree minus theta P1 plus theta P2 plus theta P3. So that's what we have done here, 180 degree minus theta P1 plus theta P2 plus theta P3. So we'll calculate the numerical value, that is theta P1 123 degree, 37 degree and plus 90 degree. So the angle of departure will be minus 70. So that means from here, the root locus will terminate at an angle of minus 70 degree. So for this case, for minus 70 degree, if it is there, so similarly, if you calculate for minus 2 minus J3, this will be plus 70 degree, because this will be always the mirror image. Okay, this will be always the mirror image. Next, rule 9, that is the breakaway points on the real axis. So how to calculate the breakaway point? Breakaway point, from the name it is clear. So that means the root locus will somewhere they will meet. Okay, 2 root locus will meet at somewhere on the real axis, and after that where they will move. So that means they will meet at a particular point, then they will break away. Okay, break away means they will move in 2 different directions. So that particular point where the 2 root locus will meet in the real axis, and that particular point is basically known as the breakaway point. So if the root locus lies between the 2 adjacent open loop poles on the real axis, then there will be at least one breakaway point, because the roots move towards each other and as k is increased and meet at a point. So at this point, k is maximum. If we increase the value of k between 2 poles, the root locus breaks in 2 parts. So basically, the root locus will break into 2 parts. So similarly, if root locus lie between 2 adjacent zeros on the real axis, then there will be at least one break-in point. So there is a break-away point, there is a break-in point. So break-away point will applicable for the poles, because from the poles, the root locus will originate. Root locus will originate and they will meet at a particular point, and from there they will break away. But for the zeros, the root locus will actually enter. It will enter into the zeros. So in case of zeros, the breaking point will be applicable. So if the root locus lies between an open loop poles and zeros, then there will be no breakaway or breaking point, or maybe both occur. So you have to understand this thing very clearly. If there is a one pole and one zero adjacent means side by side on the real axis, then there will not be any concept of the breakaway or breaking point. So the breakaway or breaking points can be determined from the root locus with the help of this formula. That is dk by ds will be equal to 0. So that means we'll differentiate with respect to s. So let us say a transfer function, it is given GSHS equal to k by s into s square plus 6s plus 10. Now from this transfer function, we are supposed to calculate what is the breakaway point. So breakaway point will be 1 plus GSHS equal to 0. So 1 plus GSHS equal to 0. This is the characteristic equation. We know it. Okay. So we'll substitute GSHS value and we'll simplify basically. This GSHS value will substitute, and then we'll simplify this. So s into s square plus 6s plus 10 plus k equal to 0. So k is equal to minus s cube minus 6s square minus 10s. So dk by ds will be equal to minus 3s square minus 12s minus 10. This is equal to 0. So 3s square plus 12s plus 10 equal to 0. So if you calculate the two roots, this will be s1 will be equal to minus 1.1835 and s2 equal to minus 2.815. These are the two breakaway points. Okay. So this way actually we will be calculating the breakaway point. So let us understand this breakaway point clearly. For example, I will just explain here also. So what is the concept of the breakaway point? So let us say this is your sigma, that is j omega, and this is your sigma. So this one is your sigma and this is your j omega. Now I'll consider there is a s equal to minus 1, there is a poles. And then there is a s equal to minus 2, there is another pole. Then there is a 0 at s equal to minus 3. For example, consider it. Now, where the actually breakaway point will be there. So you see from these two poles, the root locus will originate. These two, because we know from the poles the root locus will originate. And if you take any point here, the number of poles plus 0 right of this particular point, it is 1, because only one pole is there. So obviously the root locus will be there. In this segment, the root locus will be present. Now if you consider a point here, the number of poles plus zeros will be how much? It is 2. 1 plus 1, it is 2, right of this particular point. So there should not be root locus at this particular segment. So that means if a poles and zeros, if they lie side by side, there will not be no breakaway or breaking points. But for here, you see, there are two poles are lying side by side. So there is these two poles will actually meet at a particular point and they will move in two directions. So this is the point. It is basically known as the breakaway point. That means when two root locus are moving in a opposite direction and when they will meet at a particular point, and from that point then they will move away into different direction, that particular point is known as the breakaway point. But how to calculate the breakaway point? We know that is dk by ds will be 0. So how to do this thing? We'll make 1 plus GSHS. This should be equal to 0. And from that, we'll get the characteristic equation. Then we'll differentiate this characteristic equation with respect to 0. Then we'll get the values of this s. Is it clear? Any doubt? Any doubt? Any doubt on this breakaway point?
No, sir.
Okay. So we'll stop here and let me check your attendance. If you can understand this theoretical part of the root locus, then we'll have the application part that will be on numerical problem. So that we'll take in the next class. Sure. Okay, thank you. Then we'll close this meeting. We'll meet in the next class. Okay, thank you.